Hey, Jason Rogers here. A lot of you guys have been asking me about picking an industry, and when I picked my industry about 8 months ago, and I'm talking about picking an industry to consolidate using acquisition as the driving force for creating and generating revenue, I didn't realize several of the nuances in regards to picking an industry that I know now. For those of you who are more close to me, for those of you who have worked more directly with me, I've already shared what I'm about to share in this video, but I wanted to tell you guys publicly what I've learned since starting this process of buying revenue. And by the way, we're about to make our first acquisition. It's in the process of happening now. We expect it to go through. But as far as picking an industry, there was something actually Dan Pena told me back when I met him some 8 or 9 months ago. Dan Pena and I, by the way, we don't talk anymore, but I learned a lot from him. And one of the things I remember he said was that he doesn't recommend for most people that they go into real estate in growing through acquisition. Now, at the time, I didn't understand why, but I get it now. Sorry about that. I had to clean up memory out of my phone. We're back. So I want you to think about real estate on one end of the continuum, buying real estate. And then I want you to think about on the other end of the continuum, buying a veterinarian clinic, or buying a florist shop, or buying a gravel business, buying a property management company, buying any other niche type of business. And now I want you to think to yourself, when you were 8 or when you were 9 years old, what type of investing did you hear of when you were a kid or when you were 12 or 13? You maybe heard of investing in stocks, maybe you heard of investing in bonds, and you probably heard of investing in real estate, right? But almost undoubtedly, you didn't hear of investing in cybersecurity or healthcare or assisted living or veterinarian clinics or florist shops or carpet cleaning companies or laundromats, right? See, now think from the point of a potential seller. Imagine yourself real quick as a 67-year-old individual who's now thinking about selling. If you own a piece of real estate, you know there's a market for your asset, right? You know, because everybody knows of real estate investing. Everybody knows that real estate is an in-demand asset that many investors are looking to buy. But now imagine you own a veterinarian clinic. Imagine you own a roofing company. Imagine you own a plumbing company. Imagine you own a laundromat. Have you ever really heard of any investors that introduced themselves to you and said, yeah, I buy laundromats for a living. Yeah, I buy veterinarian clinics for a living. Yeah, I buy gravel companies for a living. Yeah, I buy plumbing companies for a living. How many individuals have you ever heard of who do that for a living? Other than perhaps what you heard from some of the individuals who follow QLA or maybe from a Dan Pena or of individuals from that ilk, you've almost certainly never heard of it. And so this is really the genius of the Dan Pena system that I initially started following and now I'm cultivating and somewhat making my own. Is that what he generally recommends you do is go into industries that are A, fragmented, B, have high gross margins, C, have motivated sellers, and then the thing that he never explicitly put to me, but it hit me in the brain, is that he's generally recommending people go into industries where the sellers don't know if there's anybody that actually wants to buy their damn business. You see, when you're in real estate, it's real obvious that, hey, if you own a single family home, are you going to be able to sell it? Yes, of course. If you own a duplex or a fourplex or multifamily, are you going to be able to sell it? Yes, of course. If you own office buildings, are you going to be able to sell them? Yes, of course. If you own self-storage, are you going to be able to sell them? Yes, of course. Even in my industry, if you own mobile home parks, are you going to be able to sell them? Yes, albeit mobile home parks, I would argue, are the best asset class within the real estate world to get into because it's the least heard of as far as being able to liquidate that asset, though that's changing. My industry is becoming more and more competitive. But if you're in cybersecurity, if you own a telco company, if you own a healthcare company, if you own a gravel company, if you own a laundromat, if you own a veterinarian clinic, have you ever heard of anybody going out of their way to try to buy your type of business? Maybe you have not. There's a good chance you've not ever heard of that in your whole life. And that's why in the Dan Pena model, you talk about buying businesses at 2 or 3 times EBITDA, which is 2 or 3 times earnings, which means within 3 years, you can basically pay off your bank note. And of course, maybe 4 because you have a little bit of interest. See, in real estate, good luck trying to find a 25 cap, which is, cap rates and EBITDA, net operating income is the same thing as EBITDA. Net operating income is more a real estate term. EBITDA is more of other forms of business, but it's basically the same thing. It's your income before you pay taxes and depreciation and all that stuff. I'm not an accountant, so go confer with a real professional. But at the end of the day, you will never, ever find, unless if you're gonna buy the worst piece of shit asset ever, you're hardly ever gonna find an asset in real estate that you're able to buy at 3 times EBITDA, 4 times EBITDA. That's a 33 cap or a 25 cap. And trust me when I tell you, I deal in the mobile home park industry, which has the highest cap rates of basically all forms of real estate. You're lucky if you find a 12 or a 13 cap, 14 cap maybe. 15 cap, man, you found dynamite. A 15 cap is the equivalent of what, 7 or 8 times EBITDA for you math guys? And the whole Dan Pena model is buying at 1.5 to 4.5 times EBITDA. And the way you're able to buy at 1.5 to 4.5 times EBITDA is by being in an industry where the sellers don't know if there's anybody that wants to buy their damn business. So when it comes to picking an industry, I would stick to niche industries where you've never heard of anybody wanting to buy that type of a business. If you're in this just to make money, I would pick something obscure. My father was a roofer. Buying roofing companies would be a smart play in my estimation. It's kind of a risky business, but how many roofers think of selling the roofing company? How many individuals are out there buying roofing companies? And you could go down the list, whether it's veterinarians or florists or, and the thing is, and I don't know all these industries, what you're gonna wanna check for is over 20% gross margins. That's what Dan recommended to me, and that makes sense because it means you can be kind of a bum for an operator and still be successful. What you're obviously gonna want is that it's fragmented, meaning there's a bunch of mom and pop owners. And when you find that right industry, what happens is, look, the whole, QLA thing is based on commercial debt. And Dan will tell you that. And I'm sure if you guys have watched his videos, he basically says, yeah, it's about using commercial debt. He says, don't get equity infusion. Use debt because then you own 100% of the asset. Whereas you bring in an equity player, then you have to give away some of your ownership. Well, in real estate, that's real tough. It's possible. It can be done, but it's tougher. But when you're buying veterinarian clinics, or when you're buying an asset at a 50 cap or a 33 cap, for those of you who are real estate guys, then you can get a bank to go full bore, 100% LTV, because the debt coverage ratio is like 250 fucking percent or 300%. If you're a bank, you're like, holy crap, there's so much free cash flow. We can amortize this on a 7-year note and you're gonna pay me off in 3 or 5 years. You're never gonna do that in real estate unless if you're doing these ugly rehabs, and I'm not a rehabber. I'm not gonna get into real estate rehab and stuff like that. It's not for me. But that's really the aha moment I had in regards to picking an industry. With that insight, you can go far because I just broke down the game behind the game. And Dan taught me a little bit of that, and I want to give Dan credit because honestly, he's really helped me in my business process thus far, and I intend to be extremely successful in my life, and I'll give a lot of credit to him forever. But candidly, what I shared you is my stuff. That's not Dan's stuff. I'm not here repurposing Dan's content. It just hit me, and going through and talking to so many of you guys who are trying to do these roll-ups, you guys ask me all the time, what industry should I pick? Man, I'd pick an industry with those high gross margins that's fragmented, and I'd pick an industry that you can buy assets at 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times EBITDA. Because trust me, if I was able to buy trailer parks at 4 or 5 times EBITDA, aka 20 or 25 or 30 caps, whoo! I mean, whoa, oh boy. Is it possible? Man, maybe I'll be able to pull off a deal like that at some point in my career. But trust me, it's not easy. But again, in these niche assets that you've never really heard of people buying, where investors don't go to, you're gonna have a chance. It's supply demand, right? There's a lot of investors that wanna buy real estate. There's not a lot of investors that wanna buy plumbing shops. That's really the punchline.